It didn't happen at a family dinner. That would have made sense. Some domestic argument, a broken plate, words said too loud in the kitchen. No, it happened somewhere worse. At someone else's house. With music thumping, guests laughing. The patio strung with lights like we were all pretending life was some gentle fairy tale. Megan's best friend turned 50 and threw a party outside Austin, one of those high-end backyard things. Folding tables that cost more than my truck payment, trays of charcuterie balanced on cedar planks, servers hired just to pass around sliders and pour rows like it was a sacrament. I never liked those parties. Not because of the people, though they always asked what I did with a polite smile and bored eyes, but because of what I became in them. A prop. I stood near the grill with a beer I didn't want, letting the smoke drift into my shirt. Megan floated from group to group like she was born to it, her voice lilting just enough to sound interesting, never intense. She laughed the way women laugh when they know they're being watched. Like her laugh had a publicist. And then there was Tyler. Teen. Maybe 19 now. I stopped keeping track. Her son, not mine, though I had paid for his braces, his summer camps, his gaming PC, his gas money, and the speeding ticket he swore was a mistake. I drove him to baseball practice when Brian, his real father, forgot again. I paid the league fees too. Never got so much as a thank you. And Tyler. Tyler never had to raise his voice. He learned early that cruelty lands harder when it's wrapped in a joke. That night he stood with two of his friends. Rich kids from college, dressed like they were slumming it, and glanced my way just as I reached for the cooler. "You're only fit to be the janitor here," he said. It wasn't even that funny. Not clever. But it sliced because it was true enough. I had spent the afternoon fixing their AC before we left. Changed the cabin filter, flushed the coolant, wiped down the vents so her friend wouldn't sweat under the patio string lights. Last week, I patched the garage ceiling after it flooded from the upstairs tub. This morning, I paid the final invoice on Tyler's new MacBook. And now here I was, being laughed at in a house I didn't belong to, by a boy I had carried like dead weight for 6 years. The worst part? They laughed. Not everyone, not the whole crowd, but enough. A ripple. That sharp, knowing kind of laughter that comes when people feel safe siding with mockery. I wasn't one of them. I never had been. Not even when I paid the bills for people like them. I looked at Megan. She didn't flinch. Didn't turn red. Didn't even look surprised. She just sipped her wine, pink and glinting in the fairy lights, and said flatly with no irony, "He's just telling the truth." That was it. No defense. No correction. No pause to wonder how that might land. Just a calm little verdict handed down like it had already been decided years ago, and she was tired of pretending otherwise. I didn't speak. My body stayed still, like it hadn't caught up with what my ears just heard. A second passed. Then two. I nodded, finished my drink in one long pull, and walked toward the car without a word. She didn't follow me. Not right away. The gravel cracked under my boots. Someone yelled something from the yard. Someone else laughed again. I heard Tyler say, "Chill. It's just a joke," as I got behind the wheel. But it wasn't a joke. Not to me. Not anymore. The drive home was quiet. One of those Texas nights where the road stretches so far, it feels like you're falling into it. The headlights cut through fields of darkness, and I sat behind the wheel like a man realizing his life had already left him, and he'd somehow missed the moment it walked out the door. I wasn't angry. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't boiling. I wasn't gripping the wheel white-knuckled or screaming into the windshield. That would have been easier. Anger lets you feel powerful. No, what I felt was recognition. Like someone finally said out loud what everyone else had known for years. I wasn't part of this family. I was the scaffolding. The one who made sure things stood up straight so the rest of them could live like nothing would ever collapse. It hit me slowly, like frost climbing a window. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't just a bad night or a cruel joke. This had been the shape of the last several years. I just hadn't had the courage to look at it. I paid. I fixed. I endured. And in return, I got access. Access to the sidelines. To their version of family, the one I was never quite allowed into. I remembered last Christmas, when Tyler's gift from me. A custom guitar, tuned, strung, and boxed, was opened without a smile. He said, "Cool," then asked Megan if his dad had sent anything. Brian had sent him a gift card and a pair of boots. That was the gift he posted on Instagram. I remembered when Megan introduced me to her coworkers as Mike. No context, no titles, just Mike. Like I was the guy who drove her in. I remembered the dinners where every story had a name I didn't know, and when I asked, I got the tone, the one that says, "You wouldn't get it, don't try." I remembered when I got sick 2 years ago, nothing major, but enough that I had to lie down for 3 days. No one brought soup. No one asked if I needed anything. Megan said, "Let me know if you need help." And Tyler never came out of his room. And yet, when the roof leaked, it was me on the ladder. When the bills stacked up, it was me calling the bank. When Tyler's tuition deadline loomed, it was my paycheck that disappeared to cover the gap. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being a person and became a utility. And now they had said it, out loud, in public, with no shame. "You're only fit to be the janitor here. He's just telling the truth." The words kept echoing, not because they were loud, but because they finally made the silence make sense. Every quiet insult, every skipped "thank you," every decision made without me in the room. This wasn't new. It was simply unveiled. By the time I got home, the sun was down. The porch light was off. She hadn't texted. I walked in, set my keys on the counter, and sat at the kitchen table with the hum of the refrigerator filling the quiet. The lights stayed off. I didn't need them. In that stillness, something settled in me. Not rage, not heartbreak, just clarity. They had drawn the lines. I'd just been pretending not to see them. And the truth is, once someone tells you where you stand, you're a fool to keep asking for a different answer. Something broke, but not in the way they imagined. It wasn't a fit of rage. I didn't throw anything, didn't curse their names or tear through drawers looking for the last ounce of power I had left. I didn't march upstairs and demand an apology. I didn't wake Megan with accusations. Those were the moves of a man who still believed his voice mattered. That was not me anymore. What broke was internal, quieter, a disconnection like a cord pulled from the wall. The light didn't explode, it simply went out. When I sat in the dark kitchen that night, their words still fresh, I realized I was done pretending. I had played a role. I had read the script they handed me, provider, repairman, silent partner. But I had believed that, in time, the role would change, that I'd be upgraded to something real, that years of loyalty and presence would be enough to turn Step into something like father or partner, or even just man who mattered. But they had corrected me, publicly. Megan and her son made it clear that I was, and always had been, a useful shadow. So I made a decision, not out of spite, not to punish, just to stop lying to myself. The next morning I rose early. Not for work. I called in and used one of the few sick days I never took. Megan was still asleep when I showered and dressed. The house was quiet. Tyler's door was closed. His sneakers tossed outside like even his clutter deserved more presence than I did. I didn't linger. I didn't write a note. I left the coffee pot off and the dishes in the sink. Let them wonder for once. First stop was the bank. The woman at the desk smiled like customer service taught her to. She asked how she could help. I slid the folder across the desk. Everything she'd need. Joint account? Closed. My name had funded it. Megan's card had spent it. There was a quiet sting in removing her access, but it passed quickly. Like pulling out a splinter. I opened a new account. Private. Just my name. No family picture on the debit card. No cute nickname for the savings tab. Just sterile digits and the kind of quiet power I hadn't felt in years. Then I canceled the auto drafts. Tyler's college tuition? Gone. His car lease. The one I had foolishly co-signed on because he's too young to get credit on his own? Terminated. Insurance? Gone. Family phone plan, the one where they used all the data and ignored my calls? Cut. Their lines went first. Mine stayed. The woman at the bank asked, once, softly, "Are you sure?" I smiled at her. A tired, slow smile and nodded. I've never been more sure. After that, I met with my accountant. We'd known each other for a decade. He raised an eyebrow when I walked in without an appointment. You're usually booked solid. I had a change of heart, I said. He laughed until he saw my face. Then he opened his notebook. We walked through everything. My estate plans, insurance beneficiaries, emergency contacts, even the online tools that tracked my retirement. Megan had access to all of it. Not anymore. I reassigned every entry, slowly, methodically. If I died tomorrow, nothing would land in her hands by default. Not out of cruelty, just clarity. She'll notice, he said, glancing up as he printed the final confirmation. Not right away, I said, but soon. I drove home after sunset. The house was dark, except for the blue flicker of Tyler's screen upstairs. He was always gaming at that hour, barking orders into his headset, pretending he was leading something, building something. Megan was on the couch, one leg tucked beneath her, scrolling her phone with the kind of detachment only practiced over time. She looked up when I walked in. You're late. I had things to do, I said. She frowned, but didn't ask. That was how our marriage had become. No warmth, no curiosity, just a polite maintenance of a shared structure. She turned back to her screen. I went to bed without another word. That week passed in silence. I didn't offer explanations. I didn't hint at what I'd done. I simply pulled back. Quietly, calmly. I stopped making dinner. Stopped reminding Tyler to take out the trash. Stopped checking the mail. When the water heater started making noise, I let it. When the front lock stuck again, I left it jammed. The house began to show its fractures without me holding it together. Megan noticed first. She came into the garage one evening, her voice casual but edged with tension. The joint account. Did something happen? My card didn't go through at the store. I didn't look up from the workbench. I closed it. She blinked. You what? Closed it. Opened a new one. Just me. Why? I met her eyes. Not with anger. Just emptiness. Because I've finally accepted who I am to this family. She stepped back a little. You're my husband. No, I said. I'm your janitor. Your mechanic. Your backup plan. At least that's what you told the party. Her face flushed. Tyler was joking. And you agreed, I said. That's the part that matters. She looked like she wanted to protest. But the words wouldn't come. There's only so much you can say once the illusion breaks. She walked away in silence. 2 days later, Tyler came storming into the kitchen. Did you cancel my lease? He barked. I sipped my coffee. Yes. Why? I need that car. You can't just. I didn't cancel it, I said. I canceled my part. The part that paid for it. He stood there, mouth open like a fish on dry land. That's not fair. Neither is treating someone like furniture and expecting them to pay your rent. He stormed out, slammed a door. I didn't follow. I didn't explain. I didn't feel the need to anymore. I had stepped off the stage. Over the next week, the quiet shutdown rippled. The Wi-Fi slowed. Tyler asked what was wrong. I said I didn't know. The bill had been in my name. He could figure it out. The Amazon orders stopped arriving. Megan asked if something was wrong with the account. I said no. I just deleted it. The trash piled up. The AC sputtered. The fridge made a new sound I ignored. They began to feel it. The slow unraveling of a life built on a man they never saw. And me? I felt peace. Not joy. Not revenge. Just space. I stopped waiting for thank yous that would never come. I stopped explaining myself to people who'd already decided I wasn't worth hearing. I still slept in the same bed. Still woke up early. Still made coffee. But I did it for me now. Because the truth is, when a man stops being seen, he has two choices. Scream to be noticed, or learn to vanish. I chose the quiet exit. And for the first time in years, I heard myself think again. It started with a ping. A little sound from Megan's phone while she was standing in line at the grocery store. She told me later how it played out. Her card got declined. Twice. She laughed it off the first time, thinking it was the machine. On the second try, she used her backup card. The one I'd kept funded for emergencies. That one didn't work either. She said the cashier looked at her with a tight smile. Like she'd seen this before. Like she knew what it meant when the woman in front of her held the line, fumbling through cards and excuses. Megan left the cart behind and walked out with nothing. At home, she didn't tell me right away. That part matters. She sat at the dining table that evening while I read over some contracts from work, and she just stared at her phone, quietly opening and closing her banking app, as if the numbers might fix themselves if she blinked enough. I didn't offer her anything. No comfort. No rescue. That night, Tyler slammed the bathroom door. Megan asked why. He said his phone service was screwed. I listened as he cursed his carrier, reset his settings, tried to hotspot from Megan's phone. He never once thought it might have been me. The next morning, Megan confronted me. You canceled my card. It wasn't a question. Just a dull fact between us. Yes. Why? I set down my coffee. Because I don't fund people who laugh when I'm humiliated. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man across the table. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the version of me she thought I'd always be, the one who quietly absorbed insult after insult, was finally gone. And Tyler's phone? I didn't flinch. His phone. His lease. His tuition. His life. I stopped carrying all of it. She stood up. You didn't talk to me. No, I said. I talked to you at that party. You just didn't hear me. She left the room, hands shaking. I didn't follow. A few days later, the first letter came. University seal on the envelope. Tyler opened it in the hallway, pacing back and forth like the house was on fire. His voice cracked as he read aloud. Missed payment. Financial hold. Possible suspension of enrollment. He looked up, eyes wild, and walked straight to me. You forgot to pay it. I didn't look up from the newspaper. No, I didn't forget. Silence. Then confusion. Then the anger, sharp and clumsy. You said you'd cover my school. No, I said. I did cover it. Every semester. Until now. What the hell, man? You can't just stop in the middle of the year. You stopped calling me your father years ago. I'm just catching up. His face twisted. You're ruining my future. No, I said. I'm removing myself from a lie. He stormed upstairs. I heard drawers opening, closet doors slamming. Megan went after him. Their voices rose, overlapping. He said he'd call his dad. Said Brian would figure it out. Said it wasn't fair. The word fair hung in the air like a punchline. That night, I overheard Tyler on the phone. His voice went small, hesitant. Yeah, hey, it's me. Look, I need help. Okay? College is a mess right now. Mom's husband cut everything off and... He stopped. Then quieter. No, I know. I'm just saying if there's any way you could help. Anything. A long silence followed. Then, seriously? That's it? You're kidding. A click. A muffled curse. Something slammed against the desk. The door opened a minute later. Tyler stepped into the hallway, red-eyed, pretending he hadn't been crying. He didn't look at me. Over the next few days, the cracks deepened. Tyler stopped driving. His car sat in the driveway, unused. The lease had been under my name, the payments flowing from my account. Now the dealer wanted their money or the keys. He started riding the bus. Woke up earlier, grumbled louder. One morning he missed it and Megan had to drive him. She came back furious. You could have helped him, she hissed. No, I said. I have helped him. More than either of you will ever admit. She didn't answer. The week after that, Tyler showed me something new. Humility. He knocked on the door to my office. That alone was a change. He never used to knock. Never waited. Just barged in with demands. This time he hovered. Can I talk to you? I looked up. He stood with his shoulders curled, like he was bracing for a hit. He rubbed the back of his neck. A nervous habit I hadn't seen since he was a kid. I talked to the school, he said. They said if I pay something by the end of the week, I can stay enrolled. They'll put me on a payment plan. I need time. I nodded. I'm looking for jobs, he added quickly. I've got an interview at the bookstore. and I might be able to move into a cheaper apartment near campus. His voice cracked on that last part. He was used to something nicer, something I had made sure he could afford. Now he'd settle for whatever wasn't on fire. I'm not asking you to fix it, he said. I know I messed up. He hesitated. I'm trying. I waited. I shouldn't have said what I said. At the party. That wasn't cool. It was the closest he'd ever come to an apology. I wanted to feel something. Vindication. Warmth. Maybe even pride. But all I felt was distance. I appreciate that, I said. He nodded, unsure what to do with my calm. I'll figure it out, he said again. And then he left. The house changed after that. Not quickly, but steadily. The energy shifted. Megan cooked less. Tyler cleaned more. There was attention to everything, like we were walking through a house made of glass. Megan stopped calling me babe. That was new. She called me Mike again. Like I was her coworker or a neighbor she only half trusted. I didn't correct her. The bills started showing up in her name. Electric, water, Tyler's old car payment. It was the first time they saw the numbers, not just the amount but the rhythm of it. How money moved like blood through the house, keeping everything alive. And how much of it had come from me. Megan tried once to ask about the joint account. I just need access to cover some gaps until I get things sorted. I looked her in the eye. No. Her jaw clenched. We're married. I said nothing. That silence, that heavy, loaded pause, told her everything. That the marriage was no longer a shield. That she couldn't spend my loyalty like it was a bottomless card. She walked out. The next day, Tyler dropped a box by the door. His keys, his phone, a note with his new number scrawled on it. He mumbled something about transferring schools. Said he'd figured out a way to cover the deposit. I didn't ask how. He didn't offer. Before he left, he looked back once. I get it now, he said. What it costs. I nodded. He didn't ask for anything else. And that was the first time I believed he was telling the truth. I didn't leave. That's what people always ask when I tell them pieces of the story, when I give them the cleaner version, the version that fits into small talk or work lunches. Why didn't you just walk away? Because I already had. Not from the house. From the role. There's a kind of leaving that doesn't require a packed bag or a slammed door. Sometimes the most permanent exits are invisible. Quiet. A retreat not from the place, but from the part you were forced to play. I didn't disappear. I just stopped being convenient. Stopped playing husband, father, fixer, financier, all the roles I was assigned but never honored for. I didn't announce it. I didn't send an email. I didn't leave a manifesto scrawled on the fridge in dry erase marker. I just withheld myself, my energy, my labor, my instinct to repair what wasn't mine. At first, they thought it was a phase. Megan tried to meet me halfway with shallow peace offerings, soft greetings in the morning, sitting closer on the couch, asking about my day. Felt rehearsed, like she was performing apology without the weight of regret. I didn't return the script. Tyler texted once. Short. Got the job. Starting next week. Paychecks for what you did before. It wasn't affection. It was acknowledgement. The kind that comes only after the oxygen's been ket out of a room and someone realizes who used to keep it breathable. I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. I just didn't know him words anymore. He made his choice. Megan too. And I chose to let them live with it. The house changed. Not all at once. Not in dramatic crashes. More like rot creeping beneath floorboards. Little things broke and stayed broken. The kitchen faucet developed a steady drip. I didn't touch it. Megan wrapped a towel around it instead of calling a plumber. A week later, the sink backed up. She stared at me while dinner steamed between us. It's leaking under the cabinet. I nodded. Another pause. Can you take a look at it? I chewed my food. No. She set down her fork like I'd slapped her. You're seriously not going to help? I already did, I said. For years. I fixed everything, plumbing, drywall, tuition. And you all made it very clear none of that made me part of this family. She tried to argue. Tried to twist it into something else. A misunderstanding, a joke taken too far, a moment of thoughtlessness. But words spoken in front of witnesses aren't accidents. They're confessions. And hers had been silent. She was there that night at the party. She didn't just let Tyler's insult slide. She cemented it. He's just telling the truth. Those words weren't heat of the moment. They were the tip of an iceberg, something she'd stood on for years while I swam beneath it, trying to hold it afloat. Now I let it sink. The money stopped. The repairs stopped. The effort stopped. And slowly, so did the illusion that we were still a family. Because without my silence, without the quiet yes of every unpaid favor, every automatic payment, every swallowed insult, the house began to show its true shape. It wasn't a home. It was a stage. And I had been the lighting crew. There were nights I'd walk the hallway and see the rooms for what they really were. Tyler's door, once plastered with sports posters and reminders of SATs, now bare. Megan's office, once filled with Pinterest inspiration and the hum of Zoom calls, now cold. The dining room, where I had sat through countless meals hoping to be pulled into the laughter, now empty. I didn't clean anymore, didn't shop, didn't initiate. If Megan wanted to know where the batteries were, she had to find them. If she forgot the water filter needed replacing, she drank from the tap. At first she resented it. Then she panicked. Finally, she adjusted. That's the part no one tells you about withdrawal. They survive. You think they'll collapse without you, but they adapt. Maybe not gracefully, maybe not quickly, but they do. It's you who changes more. I started waking up early again. Not to beat traffic or beat bills, just to sit in the quiet. Sometimes I went for walks. Sometimes I just sat on the porch and listened to the world breathe. I read more, worked less, cut back on side jobs, stopped logging into the family calendar. It had always been Megan's anyway. There was nothing to sync anymore. The space between us widened. We slept in the same bed, but it felt like we occupied different climates. She stopped trying after a while. The gentle questions disappeared. The forced smiles. We became cordial, like distant relatives waiting out the final stretch of a funeral. One night, weeks after Tyler had moved out, she came home late. I was on the couch, lights off, television on mute. She stood in the doorway for a long time before speaking. I miss how it used to be. I didn't look at her. You mean when I paid for everything and kept my mouth shut? That's not fair. Neither was what you allowed. She crossed the room, slow. Sat on the other side of the couch. Her voice softened. I didn't realize how much you did. I'm seeing it now. Too late, I wanted to say. But what would have been the point? She whispered, "Do you hate me?" I turned to her. "No," I said. "I just don't believe in us anymore." She didn't cry. Megan didn't cry easily. She just nodded and looked away, her hands twisting in her lap. That was the night I knew we were over, even if we didn't sign the papers. She stayed for now. Maybe for comfort. Maybe out of guilt. Or maybe because the house still ran better with me in it, even if I wasn't running it anymore. But the truth had settled. Like dust. Like mold. Like judgment. I had stepped out of the role. And with me gone, emotionally, financially, logistically, the machine stalled. The lights flickered. The audience left. And the cast stood on stage, waiting for someone else to cue the next scene. They could wait forever. I was done. I had nothing left to give to people who treated my sacrifices like wallpaper. Always there, barely noticed, until the walls began to peel. Tyler's absence lingered. Megan's silence deepened. But I didn't mourn either, because grief requires a loss. And what I'd let go of wasn't a family. It was a performance. And now, I ask you, all of you out there who have carried a house that never carried you, was I wrong to walk away? Was I wrong to let them feel the weight I'd carried alone? Or was this the only way left to reclaim myself, after years of being the background character in their lives? Tell me, if you were told over and over that you weren't a father, weren't a husband, weren't anything, would you have stayed? Would you still be holding the roof up, just so they could live inside it and call you the janitor? Or would you have done what I did? Stepped out, and finally, let it all fall?